8 a.m. We continue with the show this morning, and it's time now to look at the UK, where we've learned the the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has dropped COVID-19 restrictions. And this morning we chat with Professor Adrian Puren, Executive Director at the NICD. Professor Adrian Puren, good morning to you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, and very good morning to you as well, and to your listeners. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful that you're able to join us now. What do you make of this initiative or this move on the part of the UK Prime Minister dropping COVID-19 restrictions?
Well, it's been difficult to follow. I think that the UK has been in a different position to South Africa in some ways, and their decision-making process has been somewhat different. And it's always difficult to understand some of the rationale because we're not always privy to what makes those types of decisions with regard to either implementing, severe restrictions while having in place, I think, less severe restrictions. So it makes it a bit difficult to always understand what they mean and the implications of those. I think it's influenced, obviously, by the nature of what is in circulation and the numbers, the hospital cases, deaths, as well as vaccine rates and coverage, and in particular, the implementation of boosters. So I think it's a complex picture. I think for the UK, it's not always easy to decipher some of their decisions.
Yes, and obviously this decision is based on the rationale talking about an extraordinary booster campaign, and together with the way the public have behaved or have responded to what they call their Plan B measures. And as a result, now we've seen that people in England will no longer be required to wear face masks anywhere at work from next week, and also talking about COVID-19 certification, where Boris Johnson said that that would end. And this is quite an interesting development coming out of the UK. But for a very, very long time, we've seen major events, we've seen sporting events, soccer events, where we've seen thousands upon thousands of people that obviously have attended many of these events, many of them not wearing masks. So I think at some point in time, this had to happen, where this decision had to come through from Boris Johnson.
Yes. I think, as I said, I'm not always familiar with all the rationale behind those decisions, but I think similarly, one would have to look at, how does one manage risks from a national perspective, and therefore, inform the public and make sure the public are aware of how those decisions will influence them, and whether within that context of that particular framework, one could make one's own particular decisions around, for example, mask wearing or not mask wearing. But I think those types of decisions, I think, are really based on what is actually happening at one's particular level, I think, to make those types of decisions. Yeah.
Yes, and I think what's going to be interesting to see, how will Europe respond to what Britain has done, and whether other countries will be following or taking the lead from Boris Johnson. And I think more importantly, I think for us here in South Africa, are there any lessons that we can take from what the UK have done that has ultimately resulted in this decision?
Yes, I think Europe has behaved somewhat differently. Quite interesting to contrast that. I think in Europe, I think they've been more stricter in terms of, in fact, having lockdowns and restrictions, severe mask wearing requirements, as well as vaccine requirements as well. So it is quite a contrast, and that contrast is in the context of, when you look at the UK, it's fairly substantial numbers of cases, a hospital system that is under severe constraints, and recently, there's the health workers were quite strict. So it's quite a contrast to see what the responses are in Europe versus, for example, the UK, and in particular in England. So I think, again, we here in South Africa need to say, well, what are our risks? Where are we with regard to our particular numbers? What is our hospital system like? What is the public responses like? In order for us to make those types of decisions, it will be important here.
Well, Prof, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning here on News and Views on Salam Media. We wish you all the best. Take care.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Professor Adrian Puren, Executive Director at the NICD, against the background of the UK, the Prime Minister dropping COVID-19 restrictions in the country. The